صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان. الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان ألا تطغوا في الميزان وأقيموا الوزن بالقسط ولا تخسروا الميزان والأرض وضعها للأنام فيها فاكهة والنخل ذات الأكمام والحب ذو العصف والريحان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان خلق الإنسان من صلصال كالفخار وخلق الجان من مارج من نار فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان رب المشرقين ورب المغربين فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان صدق الله العلي العظيم. Inshallah, we will now transition to the next part of our program, which is the lecture. So please invite our respected guest speaker, Sheikh Jehad Ismail, to talk about marriage and emotional intelligence today. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله، صلى الله عليك وعلى أهل بيتك المظلومين، صلى الله عليك يا أمير المؤمنين ويعسوب الدين وقائد الغر المحجلين. السلام على قسيم الجنة والنار، السلام على سيد المتقين الأخيار، السلام على أخي رسول الله وابن عمه وزوج ابنته، السلام على الأصل القديم والفرع الكريم، السلام على سيد الوصيين ورحمة الله وبركاته. بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات. Again, I offer my condolences to Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman, Ajalallah Ta'ala Farajahu al-Sharif, on this day marking the darbat of Amir al-Mu'mineen, salawatullahi wa salamu alayh, and the days leading to the shahada of our master and our mawla, none other than Ali ibn Abi Talib, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayh. Today we move to another part of the dua, and then through that we will look at some aspects of the life of Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullah wa salamu alayh, and how we can learn and drive some lessons through the life of Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullah salamuhu alayh. The portion I am visiting today, or I'm quoting today from Dua al-Iftitah, is where the part says, Allahumma inna narghabu ilayka fi dawlatin karima تعز بها الإسلام وأهله وتذل بها النفاق وأهله وتجعلنا فيها من الدعاة إلى طاعتك والقادة إلى سبيلك. O Allah, indeed we long, we yearn, O Allah, and turn to you for a noble state, a state that is built on faith and morality, a state that is built on justice and equity, through which you grant honor to Islam and its people, and through which you humiliate hypocrisy and its people, and make us within it among those who call towards your obedience, and among the leaders whom you guide to your path, Ya Allah. What an amazing dua that we should repeat, especially in this current climate that we are going through. What better than appealing to Allah than to grant us the opportunity to be under the government of none other than Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman, Jalallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. This government in which we find in it such qualities, where Allah gives honor, dignity to Islam and its people, and will strip away and take away any kind of honor to those who are hypocrites and undermine a government of justice and a government of equity and peace. You know, in today's world, we live in a world of turmoil where each and every individual or head of state want to make their own so-called moral system by which they want the rest of the world to abide with. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a different plan. Allah's plan is what was narrated through the words of none other than our beloved Prophet Muhammad salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi wa ahli baytihi al-tahirin, in which the Prophet declares that no matter how long time goes or extends, Allah definitely through His infinite wisdom will give rise to a person. These are the words of the Prophet now. To a person from my family. His name is the same as my name, and his agnonym, not his father's name, because you need to be aware that Islamic history has been tampered with. So in order to dismantle the idea of 12 successive imams, they twisted the hadith from the wording in Arabic where the Prophet said, Ismuhu ismi wa kunyatuhu kunyati. They changed that hadith to Ismuhu ismi wa ismu abi ismu abi. Wa alaykum as-salam. What does the hadith say in Arabic? The discrepancy. The authentic hadith says, his name is the same as mine. So we know what is the first name, right? Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Then they say the tampered hadith, the hadith that has been fabricated in some Muslim books, it says, and his father's name is like my father's name. So they want Imam al-Mahdi's name to be what? Muhammad son of? Which is not true. Because he's Muhammad ibn al-Hasan, salawatullah wa salamu alayhi. Muhammad ibn al-Hasan al-Askari, salawatullah wa salamu alayhi. The Prophet actually said, his name is like mine, and his nickname is like mine. So the Imam's nickname is Abu al-Qasim. Right? One of his nicknames is Abu al-Qasim. You know, like Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So the Prophet says, no matter what happens, a man from my family carries my name and my agnonym, my nickname. يَمْلَأُ الْأَرْضِ قِسْطًا وَعَدْلًا كَمَا مُلِئَتْ ظُلْمًا وَجَوْرًا. He will fill this earth with justice and equity, in as much as it has been filled with injustice and iniquity. And this is the lead up to the government of the Imam salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. This dua asks Allah for a dignified society, for a society where we can live with pride and say we are the servants and the adherents of the faith that takes pride in being the servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A society where Islam is honored, hypocrisy is weakened, and people become guides towards the truth. Because this is your mission and my mission. Your mission is to guide people to the truth, not by words of mouth, no, but by action. How to put faith into practice. How to believe that the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can change our demeanor and our way of behavior in such a manner that it becomes visible to others, that people can notice a change in you, so much so that they would take the opportunity to come close to you and ask you, who are you? On account of the way you behave. You know, there is a hadith by the Prophet. It says you should act in such a way that you stand out among people. Imam al-Sadiq salawatullah wa salamu alayh, he said, if there was a village or a town that numbers 1,000 people, my followers should be the lead in that community. Should be the lead in that community. The lead in that community in what sense? Not in the sense of a seat of power. No. In the sense of their akhlaq, their character, their generosity, their behavior, their justice, their eloquence, their knowledge. All this put together should make the personality of a follower of a Sadiq salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi and the school of Ahlul Bayt salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhim ajma'in. However, having asked Allah for a society where Islam is honored and where we lead a life of dignity, dignity, brothers and sisters, does not appear on its own. It's not something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reveal among people out of His goodness. No, dignity is sought and practiced. It has to be learned, sought, and then put into action. Dignity, therefore, requires justice. And justice requires men and women in our community, in our society, shaped by nothing else, no other paradigm than the paradigm of Muhammad wa al Muhammad salawatullah wa salamu alayhim ajma'in. Tonight, we remember again not only the martyrdom of our Imam salawatullahi wa salamu alayh, not the passing away of Amirul Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamu alayh alone, but the weight of the character he had carried and how we can learn and earn the weight of his character in our day-to-day living and standards. Imam Ali salawatullahi wa salamu alayh was the epitome of what a just leader is all about. Imam Ali never sought power. But since the seat of imama and the seat of government in particular is a mean and one of the best means to bring justice and to bring character and to bring a moral system in place, that's why Imam accepted at the end reluctantly the post of Khilafah after the first three. Right? He wasn't worried about this seat of power. Ibn Abbas comes to Amir al-Mu'mineen when he was in Kufa or when he was in Medina, and it was declared to Amir al-Mu'mineen that the Muslims of Medina have decided to give bay'ah to you. Yani after what? After 25 years of marginalizing the seat of government of Imam Ali salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, now you want to give me the seat of power? I'm an imam, whether people acknowledge this or otherwise, right? Just like Rasulullah spoke in honor of Imam Hassan and Hussein when he said, Al-Hasan wal-Hussein, imama qama aw qa'ada. Imam Hassan and Hussein are imams, regardless if they are elected or they are what? Marginalized. They're still imams, right? Doesn't matter whether people acknowledge that seat or otherwise. The same applies to Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullah wa salamuhu alayh. Imam Ali did not seek a seat of power, so much so that when the decision was made to give him bay'ah and Ibn Abbas came to declare to him that particular unanimous so-called decision, what was your Mawla doing at the time? He was seated by, they say by the mosque, some riwayat, or by his home. May Allah honor you. He was mending his shoes. Amir al-Mu'mineen was mending his shoes. Yani he was fixing the straps on his sandals that have become undone. He himself, salawatullah wa salamu alayhi. So Ibn Abbas came to him and said, Yalla, the bay'ah is yours. You know, I'm paraphrasing. I could just imagine Amir al-Mu'mineen looking at Ibn Abbas and saying, big deal. I'm paraphrasing. Huh? Big deal. You know? But Imam Ali took a different approach. He looked at Ibn Abbas and he picked up his sandals. And he said, oh Ibn Abbas, what is the worth of these sandals of mine? What is the worth of these sandals? In my opinion, I'll put it on my head, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. That's how much your sandals is worth to me. Right? But in market standards, financial standards, Ibn Abbas had to speak the truth. He said, لا تساوي درهما ولا دينارا. He said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, sorry, but your sandal is not worth a dirham or a dinar. Yani it's not worth $1 or a cent. Amir al-Mu'mineen shifts the whole paradigm of power. And he said, and so is the seat of your khilafah. To me, it's not worth a cent or $1 unless I establish what is right and I waive and put away what is wrong. So what does that tell you? The seat of power is a mean to what? To adjust society. The seat of power is to establish equality. Is to have and give each and everyone their due right within a system that enact what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants and how people should live. No wonder why Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and many of the ahadith of the imams as well, but in particular the Prophet, he said, by God, if Amir al-Mu'mineen, if Ali ibn Abi Talib was to assume the role of Khilafah, people would have been able to eat and be sustained from the top of their heads and under their feet. They will never see poverty because of his justice. Salawatullah wa salamah. They would lead such a comfortable, just life on account that they put the right man in the right place. Salawatullah wa salam alayhi. He carried it reluctantly. And he once said, your world to me is worth less than a worn out sandals. Just the story that I related to you just this moment. It was amana to Amir al-Mu'mineen to be in a seat of power. It's a trust in the eyes of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Tonight we must ask ourselves, brothers and sisters, a very difficult and challenging question. Do we seek influence or power or trends or likes just for image? Or do we seek this as a mean of responsibility and accountability to our to our fellow humans in order to show them what is meant to be a Muslim and how to advocate the cause of Allah on earth? So you ask yourself, and I ask myself, when I scroll on Facebook, or Instagram, or Twitter, or TikTok, am I doing it just for likes and ticks? Or there is a purpose or an agenda that I must adopt? Because you know what? Let me put it right from the end, as they say. Let me say it as it is. Every person that believes in something has an agenda. And I ask my fellow Muslims, what is your agenda? What is your agenda in life? To live, earn a house, go on a holiday, and then die. If that is your agenda, then I have missed the entire purpose of my existence in this life. Right? Everyone fights for their rights in their own way, and they set an agenda. So much so that they make you feel, in comparison to others' agenda, you're basically a non-entity. I need to be very careful with my words, brothers and sisters. For example, some of our daughters and our sons, they come after they have interaction with a certain gender. With a certain gender. I'm not talking about the male and female gender. I'm talking about some sort of made-up gender. Okay? What is the first thing they tell you about them? What is the first thing they tell you about them? They are the sweetest people to deal with. Right or wrong? Right? Right? Do you know why? Do you think it be because by default they are nice? It's because they have an agenda. An agenda to fit in. An agenda to be accepted. An agenda to make you feel ashamed. You calling yourself a man of faith, and yet they don't believe or affiliate with any faith, so to speak, yet they surpass you when it comes to the question of akhlaq and morality and justice and what have you. Right? Because they have an agenda. You set your own agenda then. And your agenda to surpass all of this. Right? To be at the apex of your akhlaq and the apex of your morality. Just like what Ahlul Bayt expects of you. Salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhim ajma'in. Because power, brothers and sisters, without accountability corrupts the whole earth, and there is a perfect example in front of very your own eyes as to what is happening in the world we are living in today. When power is in the hands of people who are not accountable to anything or to any deity, then they do whatever they want. They corrupt the whole world. They become part of the Epstein clan, right? They become part of the Epstein clan. But in the hands of Ali ibn Abi Talib, leadership became a form of worship to him, salawatullah wa salamu alayhi. Qambar, in comparison to Amir al-Mu'mineen, was a young man full of muscles. You know, he was so fit, and he was the right hand of Amir al-Mu'mineen, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, when it came to the question of helping him out, give out the money and the zakat and the khums of Baytul Mal, the Muslim treasury. It is narrated one day, there was hardly anything left in Baytul Mal. Few dirhams. And it was late at night. This is a riwayah. It is mentioned. So Qambar says, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, you are 60 years old. I'm a young man. Wallah, I need an hour of sleep. How can you sustain yourself? He said, Qambar, no problem. You go sleep. I'll finish the work myself. He said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, you're almost 60 years old. How can you bear all this work? You hardly sleep. You can't sit down. He said, guarantee for me one thing, O Qambar, and I will go to sleep now. He said, what is it, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen? He said, guarantee for me that if I go and rest for an hour before I give out all the money of Baytul Mal, that I will not die. That I will not die. And then if I die and face God, Allah will ask me, oh Ali, you couldn't give out the few dirhams that are left in lieu of your rest and comfort? What happened if one of those dirhams came to someone who was in so much need to buy something to eat and sustain his hunger after a day long going without food? What would I say to Allah, O Qambar? This is what power meant to Amir al-Mu'mineen, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. It's not about prestige. It's not about collecting funds. It's not about getting, deals under the table because I'm a minister, right? Or I'm a member of parliament, and all these things. And don't tell me, in the West, there is no such things that as deals under the table. No, Habibi, there are deals under the table because in every system there are corrupt people, right? Yeah, at face value, you would need democracy, equality, what have you, and all this. But we've seen the equality and the democracy that they want to bring to the world and to women, where a senator in the Senate in America, on a panel of speakers, openly in front of the world, he says, those girls that died in the attack, in the bombing in Iran, are better dead than to be raised in burqa. You heard him? This is the kind of democracy and equality you want to bring to our land, that you see it fit that girls should die and not to be in modesty. Ajib. Ajib, the human race is walking upside down. The human race is walking on its head, not on its feet anymore. That they see the death of innocent girls is better than a choice where they can live in dignity and honor of their own choice. Of their own choice. No one forces a girl in the Muslim community except in rare circumstances, and the exceptions of circumstances, that a parent or a father or a husband forces his wife to take up the dress of hijab and modesty. Firstly, the reason why I'm saying this, it's logical. Firstly, that command neither comes from the dad, nor the brother, nor the husband. That command of being modest, be it for both men and women, comes from where? From Allah. So the accountability of dressing modestly is a relationship between me and Allah, or between me and my husband, me and my father, or me or Allah. You know, so much so, it's incredible, the concept of hijab in Islam, brothers and sisters. You know, we know and you know, many other things in Islam has a kind of punishment attached to it, right or wrong, except hijab. There is no punishment for hijab in dunya. Why? Because it is left to the discretion and the choice of that person to understand his or her relationship with her Lord or his Lord. You do it for my sake, because I asked you to do it, right? So there's no question of force or being, coerced into it. Imam Ali salawatullah wa salamu alayh is remembered as the embodiment of justice. And I said yesterday, if justice was to embody a person, it will be represented in Imam Ali salawatullah wa salamu alayh. But his justice was not abstract. It was precise. It was disciplined. It was lived. So it was not just talk. Amir al-Mu'mineen did not just give words about justice. He actually lived justice in every sense of the word. In all his actions, in all his statements, in all his words, in all his sermons, in all his deeds, in the way he dealt with others, in the way he dealt with his enemies, in the way he dealt with his friends. He dealt on the basis of what? Justice. When he moved his government to Kufa, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayh, there was a person who was an arch enemy to Amir al-Mu'mineen, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayh, beside Muawiyah. This person was in Kufa. His name is Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais. This Ash'ath was like a thorn, like a prickle in the throat of Amir al-Mu'mineen, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayh. He would publicly criticize him, publicly undermines him, publicly say things that are not true about Amir al-Mu'mineen, salawatullahi wa salamu alayh. And not only that, during Friday prayers, while the Imam is on the mimbar of Kufa giving the Friday sermon, this Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais would bring his own mimbar outside the door of the mosque of Kufa. While the Imam is speaking, he is talking against the Imam. Some of the riwayat says. How do you deal with this person? You're the head of the state, right? What do you do? You put him in jail as a political prisoner? Do you know in Islam we don't have prisons for political, prisoners. We don't have. There's no such thing as political prisoners. You have the right to say whatever you want, as long as you don't undermine the peace and the stability of the government. If it is personal, criticize as much as you want. Criticize as much as you want. But when you undermine the state, there has to be a limit. You've crossed the red line. Why? Because now you are endangering the life of others. You are overstepping your rights and encroaching the rights of others. So some of the, friends and companions of the Imam came to him to report Al-Ash'ath to Amir al-Mu'minin. He said, leave him as is as long as the state is not undermined. Good enough? He lived just as Amir al-Mu'minin or not? Does it end there? No, look what Amir al-Mu'minin does. When money of zakat and khums would come to Baytul Mal, and Amir al-Mu'minin would distribute the right of people who can have access to that money, guess what? In your wildest imagination, Amir al-Mu'minin would allocate the share of Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais in the distribution of money. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Where do you find a man like this? So when we speak about Amir al-Mu'minin, we cry for Amir al-Mu'minin. We feel that intensity of heat and affection and attachment to Amir al-Mu'minin salawatullahi wa salamu alayh. Where is it coming from? It's coming from a point of affection and emotions only? No! It's coming from a place of love that is based on justice. That he was the embodiment of what we want to see as a leader among the Muslim Ummah and the Muslim nation. It is narrated that when Imam Ali salawatullahi wa salamu alayh was conducting state affairs, a public lamp would be lit. But when the conversation turned into a personal matter, the Imam would turn off the lamp that is being used from the money of the treasury, and he would lit up his own lamp, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayh. Imagine. Just like any other amana, this center, Husayniyah, the money that comes in, the money that goes on, this is not your money. This is the money of the Imam, right? Salawatullah wa salam. This electricity is the electricity funding the ideals of the Imam salawatullahi wa salam alayh. Water that is being used is in the name of Islam and in the name of the Imam. It cannot be put to waste. It cannot be utilized outside its parameters. That's what the Imam was trying to tell us. He would turn off a lamp when he realizes that the conversation is no longer about things that are related to the Muslims and their affairs. It was a personal conversation. So he would switch off to his own lamp. Salawatullah wa salam alayhi. Why? Obviously, because the oil of the lamp belonged to the public treasury, not to side conversation and personal request and whatever we call, majalis or our own, sahra or masahra, as the Arab put it, like having a good time at night. He refused to allow even a moment of personal benefit from public resources. This was not symbolic. He didn't do it just for the sake of it. No, it was principled. Imam Ali salawatullah wa salamu alayh was a ma'soom imam by choice, that he put what he believed in into practice. Justice is not grand and polished speech. No. Justice is action and deeds. Justice is action and deeds. Justice is small, consistent, and regular. You start small, me and you, not to Imam Ali. I'm saying me. We can learn justice in small quantity. but consistently until it becomes what? Until it becomes a malaka. What is a malaka? Malaka in English, it becomes a trait. Part and parcel of your behavior. You cannot let go of it because it's part of you now. It's your malaka. It's something that is embedded in you. Even if you want to act in a way that is unjust, you can't. Because now it is controlling you, that malaka, right? Even if you want to swear, you find it difficult. You can't because your tongue was not used to what? Swearing. It's a malaka. You trained yourself to develop that trait, right? And slowly, slowly you grow into becoming what? Someone who can practice partial infallibility, partial isma. Partial isma or infallibility. If we cannot be honest in small matters, we are not prepared for the large ones then. When Imam Ali salawatullahi wa salamu alayh appointed Malik al-Ashtar as the governor of Egypt, he wrote the most profound political instruction that in 2002, the United Nations offered the 6-point governance that Imam Ali gave to Malik al-Ashtar as the only way for the entire Arab region and its leadership to reconcile their differences with the ones that they govern, yani their people. They said, if you really want to establish a just law in the 22 Arab nations or countries, you must, this is the United Nations speaking, not me. Kofi Annan, when he was the leader of the United Nations, came out with that suggestion. He said there is so much conflict and turmoil in the Arab world. It had to come from a Westerner, someone who does not affiliate with Islam, to tell us the worth of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Salawatullahi wa salamu alayh. And those who so-called themselves Muslims marginalized Ali ibn Abi Talib. Salawatullahi wa salamu alayh. He said, you want to lead by example, you want your people to follow you and adhere to you and respect you, then put into practice the 6 points of governance that Imam Ali gave to Malik al-Ashtar, salawatullah wa salamu alayh. One of these points is that he said to Malik al-Ashtar the following point: let your heart overflow with mercy for your subjects. Don't appear in front of them as a tyrant. Don't take their wealth. Don't suppress the freedom. Don't let them feel that they are afraid of speaking or talking or transacting or doing business or deals. No. In fact, in one of the points of governance, Imam Ali goes ahead of that point. You know what he says to Malik al-Ashtar? He says, when you governed Egypt, before you start charging taxes to farmers, you must first subsidize them. Allahu Akbar. You must first give them grants to build their business, to blow their fields, to maintain their farming lands. Then when they harvest their produce and they make a profit, then you charge them taxes, not before. Right? Not before. Subhanallah. Look at the mind of such economist that was Amir al-Mu'mineen, salawatullah wa salam. You know why? Because then freely, without even asking for the tax, they will come and give it to you, Ya Ashtar. Because you've already subsidized them. You've already stood by them. He said, let your heart overflow with mercy for your subjects. For what? Why? Why are you doing this? Because you know and I know Egypt was not all Muslims, right or wrong? Right? Fantastic. So what were the people of Egypt? Christians, Copts, Jews, agnostics. You know what an agnostic? What is an agnostic? Someone who's not a Christian, a Jew, or a Muslim. Someone who's trying to find if there is God. Yani he's searching. An agnostic. He's still searching for a faith, for a belief system. An atheist. What is an atheist? Someone who doesn't believe. Mulhid. All All of these constituted the community in Egypt. Look what the Imam says to him. Let your heart overflow with mercy for the Muslims. Did he say that? No, he said for your subjects. Who are the subjects? The atheist, the agnostic, the Muslim, the Christian, the Jew. I will add the Hindu, the Sikh, the Buddhist, you name it. Right? They are all subjects. Let your mercy overflow. Let your heart overflow with mercy for all your subjects. Why, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen? Here comes what we call the virtual bombshell. Because of two reasons. Because people are of two kinds. Either your brother in faith or your equal in humanity. Allahu Akbar. Why? Because people are of two kinds. Either your brother in faith, he's a Muslim like you, or he's your equal as what? As a human being. You should not discriminate against him. That's how Islam appeals itself. In every position, it finds itself. Yet we get someone like Pauline Hanson says, Islam doesn't fit in the West because their values are different. These values are different. When I equate myself with everyone else and I don't feel I'm superior to anyone, you're telling me this is not fitting with your values? Then what are your values? The Epstein files? If these are your values, that I can tell you safely, Islam is not compatible and will never be compatible with such values. Never it will be compatible with such values. This single sentence, brothers and sisters, defines Islamic governance. In what way? Islamic governance is based on no domination, no harshness, but mercy with structure, strength with compassion. These are the rules of government. The rules of government under an Islamic system is no domination, one group over another. You know, I remember once I reading in an Islamic book, and wallahi al-azim, when we were just, still studying in Hausa, maybe Sheikh can agree with me as well in that regard. What happened when we were studying in Hausa, we do comparative studies between school of thoughts, right? We do comparative studies. For example, how do the Ja'fari school of thought compare to Abu Hanifa? How does it compare to Ahmad ibn Hanbal? How does it compare to Shafi'i? How does it compare to Malik? Where are the points of what? Of similarities in jurisprudence? And where are the points of difference? So that we understand our Muslim brothers, how they live, what they think, how, right? At the end of the day, they are Muslims. Sayyid Sistani says, Anfusana. They are what? They are ourselves. You know, Sayyid Sistani says, our Sunni counterpart, our Muslim Sunni are ourselves. He doesn't call them brothers, he says they are ourselves. So, while studying that, I read a statement in the book according to, the history books of how they developed laws when Islam is in government. When Islam is in government. I don't want to mention who it was, but one of the caliphs issued an order that Muslims and non-Muslims are compatible. Muslims and non-Muslims cannot be what? Equal or compatible. So what do? Listen to his idea of what Islam is all about. That's why my heart burns when someone who does not understand Islam goes and digs this book out and then he says, this is your Islam. No, Habibi, this is not the Islam of Muhammad wa al-Muhammad. Right? Wallah, most of the things that are being quoted in the media do not affiliate with the ideals and the teachings of Ahlul Bayt. So listen to the solution. If two people in the Islamic State, one is a Muslim and one is not a Muslim, walking in a street, the Muslim should always walk on the higher side of the street as opposed to the non-Muslim. Good morning. Good morning if you're telling me your Islam is about equality. Huh? Good morning if you're telling me that your faith is about justice. If that is one of the orders that one of your leaders had passed among his community, that Muslims and non-Muslims should not be equal. Not that, worse than that. He issues a decree that when the ata comes to Baytul Mal, when the money comes into Baytul Mal, when you distribute money, you should distribute money on the basis that Arabs get a portion higher than non-Arab Muslims. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. That Arab Muslims should get a portion higher than non-Arab Muslims. Allahumma ajjil waliyika al-faraj. Oh Allah, hasten the return of the Imam so we will know what justice is all about. Right? Ajjil waliyika al-faraj. Today's leadership often swings between two extremes: aggression without mercy or mercy without purpose of just satisfying internal ego. Imam Ali transformed firmness into justice, softness into humanity. Despite his authority, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, Imam Ali lived a life of quiet service. He would walk through the streets of Kufa at night, carrying food to homes of the poor, but he did not announce his charity once. Once. People would receive their food in the middle of the night, and they would wake up in the morning, see the food placed in front of their homes, and they would not know what was the identity of the person who left the food at their doors. They wouldn't know. He did not publicize his service or his generosity. He did not seek recognition. Salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. He served under the wing of night and darkness. When he was martyred, only then the poor of Kufa realized that the food that was delivered to them was delivered by Amir al-Mu'mineen, because they could not find it anymore. Allahu Akbar. Because they realized that the man who had been feeding them at night was none other than their leader, who is no longer among them. That is leadership, when it leaves its imprint invisibly without anyone knowing. That's why the Prophet said, when you want to spend for the sake of Allah, spend in such a way where your left hand doesn't know what your right hand gave. Don't come and boast. You know, I gave this money, or I raised this what, or I don't know what, or I donated this carpet for Masjid al-Kufa, or I put, the tiles in, I don't know what. So what? You're doing it for your own sake. You are the only recipient of the good that you are doing, right or wrong? You are the only recipient of that. If you disappeared tonight, who would feed? Who would fill your absence, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen? That's what the poor of Kufa would say. Would be one of two people that Imam Ali spoke about, right? Be one of these two peoples that Imam Ali spoke about in order to fill that vacuum. Who are these two people? I think I've passed my time, right? Any more minutes? Ahsan, Jazakallah khair. So, I said this is the kind of leadership we want. When it leaves its imprint invisibly. Tonight we must ask ourselves a personal question. If you disappear tonight, if I disappear, I don't want to talk about anyone, I'll speak about my humble self. If I was to leave the world today, or go away, who would feel my absence or my vacuum? Who would feel it? What have I done for people to feel my absence? Right? Amir al-Mu'mineen, when he went, the entire Islamic world that consists of 38 different countries felt his absence. Salawatullahi wa salam. Because that was the Muslim world then. It consisted of 38 parts, yani states, 38 states. They felt his disappearance. So Imam Ali says to you, this is how people will feel your absence. He said, live among people in such a way that if you die, they weep over you. And when you remain alive and you are absent from their eyes, they long for you. Allahu Akbar. Live among people that if you die, they feel your absence and they cry for you because you were a real mu'min that impacted their life. And when you're not among them in a particular time, although you are still alive, but you couldn't make it to the mosque, they can't even imagine a night without you because you brought so much meaning to their life. Despite his courage in battles, despite his unmatched knowledge, despite the authority he carried, Imam Ali salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi trembled before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is narrated that when the time of prayer arrived, his color would change, his body would shake. Someone would ask, why ya Amir al-Mu'mineen? And you are Amir al-Mu'mineen. He would reply, it is time to return the trust to its owner. Allahu Akbar. That salah is a trust from Allah. It's time to give it to Allah back. In what shape do you want me to give my salah back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Leadership without worship corrupts. Knowledge without sujood hardens the heart. And justice without fear or awe of Allah becomes tyranny. The strength of Ali did not come from power. It came from his connection to his Lord Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I will conclude with this point. You know, when Imam Ali was struck, salawatullah wa salamu alayh, one of the doctors of the time, he said, what could help disseminate the poison in Imam Ali's body is milk. So it was announced among the Kufans that Imam Ali's cure could be through the means of milk. You know, when he was at home, all of a sudden, not adults, not warriors, children, the age of these young kids sitting in front of me, each and every one of them came to the door of Imam Ali with a bowl of milk because he's the one who used to feed them that milk. And now they want to return the favor to their Imam, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. But with a closer introspection and examination of the wound of Imam Ali, that same doctor said what? He said that Al-La'in ibn Muljam had struck the Imam in such a way that the sword reached the very brain of Imam Ali salawatullah wa salamu alayhi. That so much so that there is no cure for Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi. Assalamu alayka ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. Assalamu alayka ya Qa'id al-Ghurr al-Muhajjalin. Assalamu alayka ya Qasim al-Jannati wal-Nar. السلام عليك يا من حبك جنة. السلام عليك يا من شفاعتك ترجى يوم القيامة. السلام على علي بن أبي طالب يوم ولد ويوم استشهد ويوم يبعث حيا. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. أمن أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. Last one. أمن by the right of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad and by the right of Surah Al-Mubarakah Al-Fatiha, proceeded with salawat ala Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad.
سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر ولله الحمد. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن عليًا ولي الله أشهد أن عليًا حجة الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله. ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. اللهم اغفر لنا وارحمنا وعافنا واعف عنا في الدنيا والآخرة إنك على كل شيء قدير. اللهم
Why?